Nick Martinez signing his qualifying offer has torpedoed a Jonathan India trade rumor that we really liked.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. We are your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We have a combined nearly 14 years of experience covering this team in podcast form. We love baseball. We love these Cincinnati Reds. We have taken our love of the game, our love for this team. We've turned that into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. On today's podcast, Jonathan India to the Royals. Well, those rumors are dead, at least according to one former general manager. Could Jeimer Candelario be on the block, though? Could he be on the move? We're going to tell you, and the answer might actually surprise you. The Reds also have a plan in place now for broadcasting games in 2025. We're going to talk about what we know so far about your ability to watch the Cincinnati Reds for the 2025 baseball season. The Reds have also added a couple guys to the 40-man roster in order to protect them from the Rule 5 draft. We're going to talk about who they are coming up a little bit later in today's episode that's brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And where we're going to get started is the rumors of Jonathan India to the Royals may have been greatly exaggerated, or maybe at least dead on arrival. What we learned from our good friend, Captain Leatherpants himself, former general manager Jim Bowden, has come and weighed in on this, Jeff, and he says the Reds are done. They've stopped talking. Nick Krall has hung up the phone. They have ghosted the Kansas City Royals because Nick Martinez picked up that qualifying offer.
I find this intriguing that both rumors came from athletic sources. Ken Rosenthal, of course, was first to report this trade idea out into the ether, and then Jim Bowden was the one to shoot it down. And I know that one of our good friends of the podcast every day, or Scott Campbell, would probably say, yeah, I don't trust old Leatherpants to farther than I can throw him. So I don't know that he would be buying into this, but there's definitely something to this, because even when we discussed the rumor, we wondered if Nick Martinez coming back on the qualifying offer would stop them from negotiating, which we both said should not be the case. The Reds pitching staff needs all the depth it can get, and they don't have anybody on the staff that has ever made 30 starts. And Brady Singer did that last year. He made 32 starts last season. So I still am in the camp that I want this to happen. I want this trade to go down. And in fact, shout out to our friend Jack Johnson over at Locked On Royals. He talked about this the other day. He wants it to go down. They're looking for a leadoff hitter. They're looking for a guy that can get on base. Jonathan India can do that. And the Reds are looking for a pitcher that they can trust to make 30 starts. I want the Reds to go do this. But at least initially, the reports are that because Nick Martinez is back, they're not looking for any more pitching.
Well, that also means that heading into spring training, heading into the beginning of the 2025 season, your options for the fifth starter are you're either going to give the keys to Rhett Lauder and hope that he continues to progress and gets better and does all the things, or you're banking on Graham Ashcraft making a return to the rotation. Those are the kind of the two options that you have left now if you don't go out and get another pitcher in addition to Nick Martinez. You're talking about Graham Ashcraft / Rhett Lauder as your fifth starter to begin the 2025 season.
And look, we love us some Rhett Lauder. We're not saying anything about the future of Rhett Lauder, but the current state of this organization is a team that needs to make the playoffs. Do we trust Rhett Lauder to make 30 starts next year? The answer is no. We trust Brady Singer to make 30 starts next year. I kind of wish they would make this sort of move. And that is where I kind of look at this and I say, I think that's the best way to utilize the idea of trading Jonathan India, because I think we're both in agreement. The best use of Jonathan India for the Reds is as a trade chip. because if Matt McLain's healthy, he's not playing second base. Jonathan India is not going to be an everydayer at a different position. At least I don't think. And that means that he's going to be playing a lot of DH. He's going to be doing a lot of super utility around the field and all this other stuff. So if you can get some really good pitching depth, and Brady Singer is a pretty good pitcher, then I think you should go get that. And they're going to be able to go get outfielders on the open market. They're going to be able to sign them on the free agent market. So they don't have to trade Jonathan India for an outfielder in order to upgrade that position. You can get two birds with one stone here, sign a free agent outfielder, trade India for pitching.
Well, just for a minute, let's pretend that Nick Martinez picking up his qualifying offer eliminated the Reds' willingness. Didn't eliminate their ability, but eliminated the Reds' willingness to go out and spend money on Santander, Hernandez, even Tyler Callahan. I'm sorry, Tyler O'Neill.
We're talking about Tyler Callahan
later.
Later.
Yeah, later in the show. Sorry, looking at my notes. And
he
would
to like them to spend money on him.
No,
but yeah,
for sure. No, or Tyler O'Neill. Let's say that this makes them lose their desire to do that. Some rumors broke, and I want to talk about Jeimer Candelario before we circle it back and wrap up this Jonathan India talk, because there's some rumblings out of somewhere in Northern California, Oakland, Sacramento, the Motel 6 in Bakersfield. I don't know where the A's are based out of right now, but there's some rumors surrounding the A's that they are a good fit, a good match, and have interest in Jeimer Candelario. If that's true, Jeff, if that's real, I will help Jeimer pack his house and drive him to the airport in Northern Kentucky. I will get him on a plane to California, and they can decide what they're going to give us back later. But what if they really do want Candelario, and there's a package to be had, say Candelario, India, and a pitching prospect for your guy, Brent Rooker?
I would love that.
And would that be enough to get it done? Would
I don't think it would.
India, Candelario, and a pitching prospect be enough to get a deal done?
So, and to reference this Candelario to the A's thought, it was an article on the Oakland A's, or A's, whatever. It says Oakland A's on SI on their website, but it's just the A's because now the A's have shunned Oakland. Anyway, whatever. On the Sports Illustrated site for the A's, they were talking about that the A's need power, and the A's general manager has said that there is a willingness to add to payroll for whatever reason next year for the A's. So this team makes no sense whatsoever. And you're right. They could be literally driving around in a trailer, and that is their headquarters in Northern California, just driving around like the bad guys in Die Hard 2 or Die Hard 3, whichever one that was. But the whole point being, it's so strange. But I think the reason for it, though, is they believe that would be a trade that the A's wouldn't have to give up much for. So I think if Candelario is part of the deal, it actually brings it down a bit. So if the Reds are going for Brent Rooker, it's going to have to be India. If Candelario is in this deal, I think you're including Chase Petty, or you're including a really high prospect that they're not going to trade. So I just don't see that bit happening. Like if
that were the deal, if that were the deal, Candelario, India, Petty for Rooker.
For Brent Rooker?
Are you doing that deal?
I would
do that deal. Okay.
I would do it, but I don't know. Again, I think Oakland wants more for Brent Rooker because they've come out and said that Brent Rooker is untouchable. So with that all being said, like I think that any rumor that there is, number one, I thought one team being interested in Jeimer Candelario to trade for him was one more than I expected. So that's interesting. And literally, if it's for a player to be named later, the $16 million, and as long as the A's take his contract, they don't require the Reds to pay any part of it. The $16 million that he is owed can be much better spent on the outfield or pitching or whatever. So just trade him for a player to name later. I don't even care at that point. Like, you don't need to make this hard. If the A's want him, the A's can have him. Because as much as I think he's going to bounce back next year, I wouldn't mind if he has to bounce back as an A rather than a Red.
Can you imagine Can just as a side note, can you imagine getting that phone call from your baseball president that's like, guess what, man? Signing opportunity for you. You're going to be a starter in Sacramento. Maybe.
I think
Maybe
Candelario might be a
Sacramento.
little salty about that if that happened. Yeah, or anybody be salty about that if that happened. But yeah, no. Look, it's hot stove season, baby. We're gonna keep you up to date on all the rumors going on. Like we said, India reportedly the India for Singer deal is dead. We don't think it should be. Hopefully, the Reds can push and make this trade a thing, and maybe even trade Jeimer Candelario as well. But hey, yes, you will find it easier to watch Cincinnati Reds games next year. It may be the offseason in baseball, but there's never an offseason over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new users can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Go sign up on FanDuel.com right now. There's some great futures odds when it comes to baseball. The Reds 60-1 to win the World Series next year. Terry Francona really wants you to take that line, maybe even wants to see it get a little bit more to the underdog side of things because he is ready to lead this team to where they want to go. But you can also check out football lines, basketball lines, hockey lines. They literally have everything. And if you are live betting during the game, you can see everything about the game all on the same page that you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Like I said, new users with their first $5 winning bet can get $150 in bonus bets. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We are talking Reds today, all day, every week, every month, all year long. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Reds to get at least 30 minutes of Reds talk in your feed every single day. All right, Steve, trade rumors aside, there was news over the weekend that we haven't gotten to yet. I know that there's been plenty that has been said about this. Quite frankly, I still wanted more details to come out. I think we will get more details as we get closer to the year. But the Cincinnati Reds will no longer be broadcast by Bally Sports, FanDuel Sports, whatever the heck it was going to be called. They will be broadcast by Major League Baseball, and that means that everything is going to be easier when it comes to watching the Reds on television next year.
Well, it's going to be easier if you live in Reds country because gone will be the blackouts. There's going to be a streaming platform option in addition to cable-based, satellite-based options. This is going to follow what the Padres did. This is going to follow what a couple teams did. I can talk directly about how it worked for the Padres because for whatever reason, Hawaii is a local market for every West Coast team from Seattle to San Diego. I don't understand it, but that's the case. So when the Padres lost their broadcasting deal with cable company, a new channel popped up on my Spectrum that was just the San Diego Padres channel, and it had something on it when there was a game. That's what you could watch on the San Diego Padres channel. So that will be an option. I'm sure they'll do the same thing on Alta Fiber or whatever it is for you guys there. I'm not sure if it's Spectrum or whatnot, the main cable company. They will do that. But it's also going to be available streaming. My guess is they probably do it through the MLB.TV platform as some kind of a local piggyback where you can watch it there. Right now, if you have that platform, that's how I watch the Reds out here. But in market, the Reds games are blacked out. They'll lift that blackout for some type of fee. They haven't said what that is going to be yet. Also, what we don't know is who's going to actually be calling the games. While everybody hopes that it's the majority of the same broadcast crew back, that announcement has not been made. I expect maybe we'll get that information before the winter meetings, I hope, as well as exact costs and price points. I really hope baseball doesn't drag this out. I reached out to a couple of the broadcasters, and they don't know yet. They don't know what's going on. So nothing to report at this time about who we'll be listening to as we watch the Reds games.
And that is an interesting thing as well because the announcers are partially employed by the team, so the team also has a say. And I remember that Doug Healy, the chief operating officer for the Reds, who we only hear his name like this time of year, but he came out and he was talking about this new broadcasting deal, and he said that they are still evaluating broadcasting options. If you compare what the television product for the Reds will look like next year, what it could possibly look like next year, to what the Padres, Diamondbacks, and Rockies, what they have looked like this past year. There was a much more truncated pregame show. There's only like 30 minutes long. And the postgame show was very short as well. And then you actually have different camera angles, which I kind of love. Like there's a wire cam, there's an ump cam, like all this different stuff that you could get. And I believe that's all on the MLB.TV side of things. I don't think that'll be like on the Reds TV side. I think Reds TV will just
the TV camera. The TV looked like a traditional broadcast. Watching, when I watched Padres games on the cable system, it was like watching any other baseball broadcast. But yeah, on the streaming side of things, you did have some choices as far as camera angles, and you get choices about home and away radio feeds or TV and radio booth feeds. They do the overlay for you. You don't have to do the whole sync it up and listen on an app and all those things.
And I like too, and this was something that they said is probably going to look very similar, is that the pricing model for MLB.TV for those teams, I think it was $20 a month or $110 for the year. And I love that because I mean, I know that I've told you off air before, like what I had to do to just watch without trying to get a cable box in the house. I did Fubo or whatever last year, and that was like $115 a month. So even that is going to be a little bit more cost effective and stuff like that for us on the consumer side of things. Now, the interesting part about this is that it will impact the revenue of the team because it is all going to be subscription based. Now, like how many subscribers there are in Reds country will affect the team's revenue. And that's going to be tough, at least for the first year, because they're not going to be able to project that. They just won't know what that number is going to be. But there were estimates from Gordon Whitmire, from Mark Sheldon, from all the writers that were covering this new TV deal. The estimates were that it was going to be less than even Bally Sports was coming back, because apparently before the Reds decided they were done with Bally Sports was coming to them and saying, all right, so we're going to start this year's bidding at 20% less than we were giving you last year. And so it's going to be even less than that is what they are conservatively, projecting for this year. So revenue could be an interesting thing and could be a strange conversation for the Reds.
And we were talking about $60 million, right? $60 million from Bally Sports. And you look at what that revenue would be under this new model. Now, there still will be some dollars coming in from whatever the cable side of things, whoever is going to have that channel, that Cincinnati Reds channel.
It'll be less, but it'll still be something.
It's going to be less, but they're going to be paying the Reds some money. And then the streamer subscriptions, then that money would get added to it. Yeah. I imagine if they got to $25 million in revenue combined from all that, I don't know. I think if I was in the Reds front office in the bookkeeping department there, I would count that as a win for the first year of this model.
And that's kind of the tough thing, right? We talk about the inequities of baseball all the time in different fashions. We hate the term small market, but that's exactly what the Reds are. This is going to make the small market feel like a tiny market because the Reds, like we said, are going to be happy with like $25 million on the television revenue side this year. There are teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees that are getting upwards of 80, 100 million just from their television deals. And that's not to say merchandising and advertising and ticket sales and all the other stuff that they do. So that is where the big difference comes from. As much as we might want to stand on a bucket or on a table or on whatever and scream out that the Reds need to pay to get their championship, there is an element of this that there's certain things they can't do. And with the 25 million, it's going to be easy for them to explain to us why they can't go crazy, though we have heard, and Doug Healy, the guy that I mentioned just a few moments ago, COO of the Reds, did say that the payroll will be comparable, if not slightly more than it was last year. So they are at least maintaining their commitment and not slashing payroll like, honestly, I was expecting them to say that, so I'm very glad that they didn't say that.
Yeah, and just a quick note for the folks that watch the Reds out of market, like me, and people that don't live in the Reds designated area.
Shout out JoJo.
Nothing is gonna, Nothing. We haven't heard from him in a while. I wonder how he's doing out there.
Nobody's more out of market than JoJo is.
This is true. The Philippines is even farther than me. No, for those folks, nothing's going to change. You're still going to use MLB.TV. Just the product that you're watching is going to be produced by Major League Baseball versus Bally Sports / FanDuel Sports. I wonder what the area in the ballpark that the artist previously known as the Bally Sports Club. I wonder what that area is going to be changing to.
Gonna be the alcohol club,
the FanDuel Sports Club, or something else. But it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that.
Because the MGM, the Nation Kitchen, I think it's like MGM. Grand or something. Yeah, probably. Who knows? I don't.
But I bring that up because it's an opportunity for the Reds to maybe, if that sponsorship deal goes away, that's another place they can make up some revenue, because whatever person comes in there and pays money to the team to name it after their business, that's more money for the Reds.
Could be the Locked On Reds Club. We got you $1.
You're ridiculous. And on that note, we're going to wrap this segment up. If you live in Reds country, the blackout era is over. And if you're not in Reds country, well, things will continue the same in 2025. All right, listen, Jeff, the Reds added a couple guys. I inadvertently talked about one of them for a hot second already, but they added a couple guys to the 40-man roster in order to protect them from the Rule 5 draft. Coming up, we're going to tell you who they are and what it means. We've got that for you next. Make sure you take us with you. If you can't watch us on YouTube, we are available on pretty much all of the audio podcasting apps. If you use one we're not on, I'd be shocked. But if you need us to be on it, message Jeff on X and he'll try and make it happen. While you're here watching us on YouTube, click like, click subscribe, click the notification bell, leave us a comment, do all of the things to help drive the algorithm so that we not only get to talk Reds baseball with you, but the show finds its way to your friends. We really appreciate it. All right, Jeff, the Cincinnati Reds added 2 players to the 40-man roster. One of them's kind of a no-brainer. Another one of them kind of interesting. And what its overall effect on the 40-man roster is pretty interesting as well. The Reds added Luis May, 23-year-old right-handed pitcher, to the 40-man roster. You probably recognize that name if you've been following the offseason news a little bit. He was named the reliever of the year in the Arizona Fall League, this most recent Fall League games. Also added Tyler Callahan. Talked about him a second ago. Didn't mean to, but Tyler Callahan was added to the 40-man roster as well. He's a 24-year-old infielder turned outfielder. The Reds protected him as well. Which one of these guys do you want to start with, Jeff?
Let's start real quick with Luis May, because Luis May, I think, could be a factor for the Reds bullpen this season. Being that he's 23 years old, he'll be 24 in June. But dude's got the stuff. The only question that surrounds Luis May is command, his walks. He walked a lot of people last year. There was a point. So he began the year in Dayton, finished the year in Chattanooga. He pitched 21 games in Dayton, 19 games in Chattanooga. In his 21 games in Dayton, he had a 28.1% strikeout rate and an 18.8% walk rate. League average is 8%. So he's 10% more than league average when it came to walking people. That came down when he went to Chattanooga, but so did the strikeout rate as well. So that's something to monitor. But the good news was in Arizona, he only had 2 walks in his 8 2/3 total innings. Now, that's a tiny sample set. It's not going to make any judgments on that. Yeah, but that's the thing with him, is that he can hit 100 on the radar gun with his fastball. He throws a nice slider and a nice change. It's just where they're going to be. What's the walk situation going to look like? That's what they need to figure out in Louisville before we see him in Cincinnati. But I do believe, especially having been added to the 40-man roster now, that we will see him probably June or July in the Reds bullpen, and he could push for some good late inning work.
Now, at the end of last season, he finished up in Chattanooga. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
From Dayton to Chattanooga. See, I think even though he was pretty good out in the Arizona Fall League, I think he goes back to Chattanooga to start the season. I think they start him there. They take a look at him, and he can pitch his way to Louisville there. And they do that thing where they start him out at the same level, and then 4 to 6 weeks in, they kind of reevaluate and see if they want to make the jump. I think that's what they do with May. I think they'll start him in Chattanooga, and then about a month in, if he's pitching really well, they move him up to Louisville.
I won't push back too much, except to say that on the Hot Stove League show Tuesday night, whenever Nick Kroll was talking to Tommy Thrall and the gang, Nick Kroll mentioned that Alexis Diaz, after having a couple of seasons in the minor leagues, really only getting to Chattanooga, started to impress in spring training. They gave him a shot, and then they never looked back. So there's a chance, if he goes crazy in Goodyear this spring training, they could give him a look even earlier than I'm thinking. But yeah, okay. I tend to believe with you that they're going to at least slow play this a little bit, because there's not a ton of opportunity in the bullpen. But yeah.
I still think if he's pitching well enough to get out of Chattanooga in the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season, there's still an opportunity for that timeline that you mentioned, June, July,
he still moves.
That he could still make it to the majors. So I'm not saying he shouldn't be considered a factor. I just think maybe they'll start him back there just to kind of get and make sure that he's ready. But another guy that they added to the 40-man roster, let's talk about Tyler Callahan for a minute, because he's an infielder turned outfielder. He makes now the 10th, the number 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10th, a full quarter. 25% of the 40-man roster is outfielders, Jeffrey, and not a one of them really makes me feel
like Spencer Steer, but and I like TJ Friedl when he's healthy.
That does count Spencer Steer.
I think Jake Fraley could bounce back. No, but that's the point, though, right? Is that there are 10 guys on this 40-man roster that are listed as outfielders. Tyler Callahan, if you followed him, which, by the way, but take just a quick sidebar from the outfield conversation to congratulate Tyler Callahan. Dude has been working in the minor leagues for years now. If you remember, I feel like this was 2019, 2020. I was talking about the top prospect list for the Reds, and he was on it. He was in like the teens. He was in the top 20s. He was a guy that some people were kind of watching a little bit, and then injuries happened. Injury on injury on injury on injury. This guy just kept getting hurt, couldn't stay healthy. He has worked through all of that. He's pushed through all of it. He even dealt with an injury last year, came back, played well in Louisville, played well in Arizona, and now he's on the 40-man roster. And he was a guy, too. He was eligible to be picked during the Rule 5 draft last offseason, but he wasn't. He wasn't protected, and he wasn't taken. And so people thought, I wonder what this guy's going to be. He worked his butt off last year. He gets added to the 40-man this year. He's got a shot to make an impact, some sort of impact at the major league level. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm happy for him that his hard work has paid off. But that is to say that he joins a rather uninspiring group.
Listen, I mean, if we're looking at this list, and if they don't add an outfielder, Jeff,
they have to.
Five guys on this list are going to have to be on the major league roster next year. This list, let's just read it: Spencer Steer, TJ Friedl, Jake Fraley, Will Benson, Reese Hines, Blake Dunn, Jacob Hurtubise, Stuart Fairchild, Joey Weimer, and Tyler Callahan. 5. You got to pick 5 of those guys to be on your active roster. I mean, I guess Spencer Steer is the easy one. TJ Friedel's another easy one. Jake Fraley. That's 3.
Yeah.
Of the remainders, I don't want Will Benson. Reese Hines really isn't ready. Blake Dunn hasn't showed that he's an everydayer. Hurtubise couldn't show that he's an everydayer. Stuart Fairchild can't hit right-handed pitching.
Yeah, that's true too.
So Fraley and Fairchild equal an outfielder. So there's
This is why we're begging for an outfielder, because this is the doomsday scenario that you have to pick 5 of these guys and get. I get it. Will Benson's done some things, but he did a lot of nothing last year. The strikeouts really outweighed everything else that he did. Reese Hines did some things for like a week, and then he struck out for like 3 weeks, but there's a number of people that conveniently forget those 3 weeks. They remember the week that he was hitting dingers, and that was fun. But there was a point in time where I think he was like, it was either 0 or 1 for 34. And that's just not a number that you should forget, especially if you're Terry Francona and you're making.
Well, it's definitely a number you don't want to remember, Jeff.
They're not gonna ignore that when they're looking at should he be on the roster. Blake Dunn, I don't feel like Blake Dunn got a good chance, got a good look, but the little bit that we saw of him was uninspiring. Jacob Hurtubise has no power whatsoever. Joey Wiemer, I think he was on the roster for all of like 2 plate appearances last year after getting traded over from the Brewers. So there's a lot of could they? And there's a lot of would you like to see them get a shot? Sure. But we're trying to make the playoffs here. Like, we're trying to be a really good team here. And I don't envision a playoff roster that is handing significant numbers of at-bats to 7 out of these 10 guys.
No, if this, listen, I have said it before. I will say it again. I don't have my drum yet. If this is the outfield group that heads out to Goodyear to start the season, Nick Krall failed. Nick Krall should be fired. Just there. I put it out there.
There's not an acceptable explanation for going to Goodyear with these 10 guys and saying that we're going to find 5 guys. Like, look, Jake Fraley, he could bounce back in the power department and look really good, but we know for a fact that he can't hit lefties. So then you got to play him with Stuart Fairchild a lot. And Stuart Fairchild, while he hits lefties really well and he plays defense really well and he runs the bases really well, you cannot tell me that he has good attention for detail, because there were a lot of important moments last year that it felt like he missed something. He missed that there were only, 1 out or 2 outs or whatever. He missed that there was a runner that could tag up and score. Things like that. Like, that's stuff that I can't forget about. And hopefully he figures that stuff out. But that can't be they're going to figure it out and bounce back, so we didn't need anybody. You can't sell that to me and tell me that you had a good offseason. But one more thing.
Go ahead.
One more thing before we get out of here. Because we could talk about the outfield all day and bellyache about that all day. There was one other note Nick Krall mentioned on the Hot Stove League show that I just wanted to get out there, because I know that there will be questions, and we'll probably rehash this around Rule 5 time, but I felt like this was informative, is that when it comes to the Rule 5 draft, I know that there might be some people that are just like, well, why didn't they protect this guy? Why didn't they protect that guy? When it comes to the Rule 5 draft, if you're drafted in the MLB portion, you must be added to the active roster, not the 40-man, the active roster for the entire season, or you're traded back to the team that you were picked from. And then if you get through the major league portion, the only players that are eligible for the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft are players at the AA level and below. So anybody at AAA is protected from the minor league portion. So for anybody that's wondering why player A wasn't protected, then there's a little bit of a gambling game that major league front offices play. And none of these guys, Luis May included, were in the Baseball America top 30 for the Reds organizational rankings. The Reds had no top 30 prospects that needed to be protected, according to Baseball America. So this was not a situation where the Reds had a lot of guys they needed to add. They felt good that Luis May and Tyler Callahan can help them somehow, and they didn't want them going elsewhere. But yeah, we'll definitely keep you up to date on that all off season long, because we're here with you every single day. Make sure that you subscribe. But that's going to be where we end today's podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Reds your first listen every single day. Every day is coming up on the next Locked On Reds podcast. We'll continue to look at some rumors, and we're going to start digging deep on a couple of guys when it comes to their seasons in 2024 and what value they bring in 2025. Make sure you check us out every single day. And for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, because Sully's going to keep you covered all throughout the offseason as well. All the different moves going on. I'm sure he'll say something about Juan Soto visiting the Dodgers. I don't know. That probably might come up. I have some things to say. They print money in LA. I don't know what the heck's going on over there. But yeah, Sully's got you covered. Locked On MLB. It's just like Locked On Reds. We're free and available every single day because we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Steve, get us out of here. We're all done. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Reds. We're going to gather up all the rumors, all the news, all the information, bring it right back here, and keep you Locked On Reds every single day. That was an aggressive click of your mouse. That was loud. Sometimes you just got to let them know who's boss, man. Jesus.